today to reading my comments section. Sorry it took me, a couple of weeks to get around to reading the comment section. I tried to reply to everybody and make conversation with everybody and kind of and I do take into account all comments, good and bad. I'm sorry if you feel like I'm rambling and you don't know that I know about this case. I haven't done a specific huge deep dive like I did with like Gypsy Rose. I covered that case for like a year and a half. I've covered other cases before I covered Gypsy Rose and after. I'm trying to be more of a streamer that covers multiple cases, not just one case anymore, because I got stuck in the Gypsy Rose community and that was very hard being stuck in that. It was fun at times, but the creators start fighting over time and they pick who's the best streamer and who's not the best streamer and who's like the funniest and who does this and who does that. And like right now everybody's mad at like Sir Morbid has taken over a lot of that community, and he's kind of like he's trying to be a Howard Stern kind of person, and so he's not really nice. Like, I knew that Becca's Scoops was bad long before they did, but whatever. I got trashed for not liking Becca Scoops, Nina, and everybody else. That everybody else was like, oh my gosh, they're amazing. So sorry if you feel like, but I feel like everything I say is important and pertains to the case or law. And today I want to talk about circumstantial evidence, because everybody's asking, well, why is Mackenzie Sharilla, if she's innocent, like, here's like Crime Circus came up with these text messages. They're great because 2 weeks before the accident, Dom had taken the wheel and tried to cause an accident, and Mackenzie was torn up about it. She did not want to lose her life, and she felt like Dom. And so, did he take the wheel that night? I don't know. The car's readout report says that they didn't say if it was a harsh right turn or a harsh left turn, just a harsh turn was taken on the car prior to the accident. So the steering wheel, and if the grid is right, where Mackenzie was laying, there's a chance, like I said, she did the hard right, or she could have been holding on the steering wheel. Dom did the hard right and it pulled her over because she was holding on to the wheel. And when he pulled it over, like, and so I wanted to kind of go over what Crime Circus was talking about, because they did a very, very good job pulling up okay, let's share screen. I want to go back to the beginning where they show the text.
Have made the claim. That's called no evidence at all, ladies and gentlemen. The simple fact is,
and we're going to talk about this in a minute, called circumstantial evidence.
She never threatened to do it.
No.
In fact, there was actually an incident 2 weeks prior where her boyfriend allegedly apologized for allegedly attempting to crash the car by grabbing the wheel. What? Don't take my word for it. Let's check out these text messages. Approximately 2 weeks prior to this accident.
So she's saying in these text messages, come down, Dom just grabbed my steering wheel on the highway, trying to spin out my car and hurt me. I'm scared to drive because it's raining. I just need to get picked up. If he doesn't get out of my car, I'm calling my dad. So please tell him to get out. And then Dom's mom says, Hench is on his way, calm down. for now, please. Please. To be honest, I can't calm down when he just tried to end my life. Then he lied to you about it. And she says, I'm just trying to defuse for now. I'm not mad at anyone. So I'm guessing Dom is on the phone texting his mom at the moment. So Dom's mom is texting Dom and Mackenzie at the same time, trying to diffuse everything, calm it down, and send Hinch to get Dom out of the car. See, is that text messages between Mackenzie and Dom? So Dom says, I'm sorry. And so this is 2 weeks before the accident, July 17th. That is not enough to fix this time. So it sounds like she's wanting to break up and he is chasing her because she's like, hey, you just tried to, and I don't want to. And he says, well, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say sorry. That's it. Oh, so you wanted to say sorry, but you didn't want to fix any of the massive problems you created. Cool. Yeah, it's not like anything's broken. There's no fixing. It's that's how you feel, then we're done. Because she's like, we got these massive problems to fix. This happens in a lot of relationships, especially young ones.
Sorry, but you didn't want to fix any of the matter limit.
How can I believe that you're never going to do that again? So she's like, I don't know if I want you back in my car again, back in my life again, because you do it once, you don't care about it, you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to fix it, you don't want to, then I can't because I don't know your limits. Somebody who loves me would never do that, never. I couldn't even do it if you told me to. So this is what Crime Circus is saying. This is proof that the intent was not there. This is the hard part about going to court. Not everything is allowed into evidence. This is so unconstitutional, by the way. When you go to court, see, Dom is the victim and the prosecutor is working for the victim, okay? And whenever the prosecution is working for the victim, you are not, and I kid you not, because I've done this in court, okay? You are not allowed to present evidence on your side that puts the victim, the person that the prosecutor, in bad light, because the court case is about you. Your name is on the docket. It's about you. They're allowed to insert anything bad about you. But Dom and Davian are off limits in the court because they are the victims. It doesn't matter who they are, what their past was. It doesn't matter. And this is why I'm talking about it. Dom, that nobody else wants to talk about. Okay? Dom was a 20-year-old dating a teenager, selling substances. He was not a perfect person. But when you go to court, that's not what they present to the judge and jury. And don't ever do a bench trial. I would risk jury trial any day, have. And I was found innocent on 2 out of 3 charges. I support jury trial and putting what do you call it? Putting the law in the hands of we the people, taking it from the prosecutor and putting it into we the people. And so when somebody is facing felony charges, especially like felony ones, life in prison, death row, anything that truly impacts your life like that, you're supposed to, according to the Constitution, you're supposed to indict by grand jury, which means you have to go gather the evidence. And you take the evidence to a grand jury of 9 people and you show them the evidence. And the grand jury says, yes, go ahead and charge them with XXXXX, whatever they say. You say, I want to charge this person with this. Here's my evidence. And so it's like a mini jury trial before you could take somebody to court. However, that's not what happens. Actually, what happens in our court systems is we get indicted by what's called information. The police give the information to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor then brings charges. And that's why there was like 15 different charges against Mackenzie, because the prosecution wants to secure a conviction. They do not like to lose. They are not going to lose. If you make them work, if you make them go to any kind of trial, bench trial, jury trial, it doesn't matter. If you do not take your plea deal, they will make sure you go down for something. So they took and they said, here, we're going to charge Mackenzie with this, 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 and this. Because if the judge does not at least find her on this, then there's a chance they'll find him on this. And it's indicting by information, which is unconstitutional. And our courts don't care about the Constitution. And they did this in the Scott Peterson case. And I'm torn about the Scott Peterson case because he's with the Innocence Project, and the Innocence Project does not take a case unless it is worth their while. Because the Innocence Project is something that it's not funded by the federal government. It's not funded by this. It's so they don't have all this massive funding to just take on any and every case in prison. Scott Peterson, he is the most alibied guy I have ever seen. This guy's alibi for the day his wife was taken, he's the most alibied guy I've ever seen. So either that means he's guilty or that means he's innocent, but I think he had knowledge because he knows that the police who talked to the robbers and believed the robbers, aka why do you believe robbers? So they're like, the cops are like, oh, the robbers were telling the truth. What? You're talking to robbers, okay? You're telling me that robbers are telling, okay, whatever. It's like, and then there was a burned van, and in the van was a mattress that was soaked in that red, liquid stuff from your body. And they did not test it against Lacey's DNA. And now the Innocence Project has taken up Scott Peterson, and they want that mattress tested. And I think Scott Peterson knows that DNA is going to turn up positive for Lacey. And I also find it interesting that they found Lacey and Connor's bodies within 24 hours of each other, a mile apart from each other. And then immediately they arrested Scott because they've been watching Scott for 9 months. They had tunnel vision on Scott. So when cops get tunnel vision, they will charge you by information, not by grand jury. Scott Peterson was also convicted. And the reason why I bring up the Scott Peterson case is not to ramble on about another case. It's to show you another case with circumstantial evidence that somebody is serving life in prison. And then the horrible part was, this is the bad side of a jury, is people lied to get on that jury. And they were already 100% sure that Scott was guilty and just sat there for the whole case. And don't even get me started on O.J. Simpson's jury. But jury is still, in my opinion, if you're not going to take a plea deal, you're going to go jury trial. So, trying to think of another case. There's another case that's on my mind, and I don't know her name, and I'm trying to think of her name right now. And now I'm drawing a blank because I trailed off into Scott Peterson again. About, okay, so, okay. I'm trying to find this case. I'm trying to find this case. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm trying to find this case. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. Okay, let's see, maybe. Okay, yeah, it was, let's see. Okay. I can't think of her name. I'm like, oh, trying to re-find a case. Candace Hiltz from, was it this one? Page, okay. Her brother James Hiltz. Okay, is it this case? Candace? Yeah, I think Candace sounds right. Candace Hiltz case. Okay, okay, okay. Okay. Yes, okay. So the Candace Hiltz case. So 17-year-old girl had a 1-year-old daughter named Paige in Fremont County, Colorado. Her brother had a mental disability. The brother lived in the woods behind him, and he would burglarize the homes around him. And her brother kept trying to get arrested. They kept trying to arrest her brother and everything. And she stood up for her brother, and she told the sheriff, "I know how corrupt you are. I know what you're doing." And she ended up unalived later, and they blamed it on the brother. And then 10 years goes down the road, and the storage units are up for sale. Like, when you don't pay your storage unit for like 6 or so months, they auction it off, and somebody bought this storage unit, and they go in the storage unit, and there's all this evidence stored in the storage unit for the Candace Hiltz case, the blanket with the DNA on it and everything. And it was the sheriff's storage unit, and everybody knew like this sheriffs and everything in this small town were corrupt. But like, oh my gosh, they were storing all this evidence. It's still an unsolved case to this day because they never fully charged the brother. Yeah, because like if I remember right, her brother, like after the dad passed away, like he went off. He was married, he had kids, he was a normal guy. His dad passed away. He kind of went off the rails and things. I forgot why I was bringing up this case, because maybe it was just about thinking about the corruption, because the corruption is everywhere, guys. The corruption is there. Just because this is why you can't indict by information. And so let's look into more what they. Okay, so she never threatened. Let's see. I mean, the fact that you're not saying anything to me makes me believe that show you they wouldn't do it again. So she's afraid that Dom's going to do this. She's actually more afraid of Dom than Dom is afraid of her. And you can tell by these text messages. And Dom did show prior to this, like supposedly at 3 a.m., he was telling his dad he loved him. And a few days before the accident, he was telling Mackenzie, like, life is short. We don't know when we're going to be gone. I want to make something of myself. Like, he was toggling between life and death all the time. He had life and death on his thoughts. Did he have it on his thoughts that morning? I think that Mackenzie was heading out to meet Rosie. I think it was Rosie's fault she was on that road. Rosie was on that road a half an hour after the accident. And nobody said anything about it being off for Rosie to be on that road. Rosie has immediately lawyered up. And that's okay. This is a torn situation. Is she allowed to lawyer up? Yes, it is your constitutional right to lawyer up. Lawyer up. Please lawyer up. But does the public look bad the second you lawyer up? Yes. Do we need to change that? Yes. We need to look at lawyering up as not auto guilt. But the fact that Rosie was on that road just a half an hour later means she could have been looking for Mackenzie because they were trying to meet up. Maybe she thought Mackenzie was being slow, so maybe she thought she would go to that. And Crime Circus explains to us the road that Mackenzie was on. I'll show you the map. Is a standard road in that area. So it's an absolutely heavily driven road. It is a normal road to drive up and down right here. See?
In the last 15 seconds or so of the drive, such as a stuck accelerator pedal. And on this,
I personally don't think it was a stuck accelerator. I know that they said these cars, that tends to happen on them, but they've also run the tests. And if they're being truthful with the tests, that did not happen. It would have been registered on the vehicles when it recorded the last 5.8 seconds of the drive that the pedal was stuck. But they talk about how this is a typical shortcut.
Approximately a 60.
So because this happened at the end of Progress Drive right here on the O. So they came, you saw them turn off the main road, which was Pearl Road, and they took a right onto Progress Drive, and then she zoomed down Progress Drive because it is a long road. You can see how long that is. And Mackenzie has been known to do that. She has been known to zoom down, or maybe was she coming from Alameda, actually? Alameda took a right turn and went down Progress, and then she got to Pearl Road. And did she know to take a left or a right? Was she oblivious to it? Crime Circus says that they were not under the influence. The blood test got taken and then dumped, so we don't know if she was under any influence. People that night say all three of them were, not just the devil's lettuce, but those little growy thingies that sprout out of the ground that are fungus. Ew. And so people are saying Davian, everybody was under the influence that night. They were all tripping out. Were they fighting over left or right? When they went from Alameda Drive onto Progress Drive, you could see that Dom had his phone out and he was turning it towards Mackenzie. Almost like, could he have been giving her directions, being like, okay, we got to go find Rosie. And so this is a standard road to drive down. I'm glad the one person in the comment section turned me on to Crime Circus.
Anyways,
I think they got a lot of this case very correctly. I think it's hard balancing the law, though. What the law is, what the Constitution says, and what our corrupt government actually does, what our corrupt court things actually do. Who was I listening to today? Okay, so there's this guy. I got to show you guys him. Okay, so it's not this one. It's they're a stream. Oh gosh, this is like okay. Is it this one? I don't think so. Maybe not. There was this podcaster I was listening to just an hour ago that was talking about the laws. They're here in Utah. And they were talking about the difference between the laws, the Constitution, and our corrupt court system. And so when they ask you to take a plea deal, and they were so correct on this, the prosecution, they're going to win it no matter what, okay? The prosecution wants to win. A plea deal is like going through the drive-through at a fast food restaurant, but it's in our courthouse. You're going through the drive-through. You go into court. You're probably 99% guaranteed, especially if this is a first charge, to take a plea deal. And they're going to sit there and say, you have to take this plea deal. I'm being nice to you by giving you this plea deal. You know, it's what's best for all of us. They have these standard lines they use on you. You know, if we go to court, it's going to cost. If we go to jury trial, it's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take this. It's going to take that. You know, it's just easier if you just take the plea deal. You admit some guilt in this because you're not completely innocent. Just admit some guilt. We'll take off X amount of charges if you just admit on these charges. We'll just do a couple of charges and we'll knock off the other 10. And just serve this amount of time or whatever, do this, go to these classes, do that, blah, blah, blah. Just, you know, and they tell you a plea deal is banking on you. Okay? Do you trust yourself? They sit there and say, well, you're just going to go on probation, okay? And are you going to commit a crime in the next year? The next 1 to 2 years? I didn't think so. You're not the type of person to commit a crime. I mean, you're tied up in the justice system right now, but you wouldn't commit a crime. So you're banking on yourself instead of a jury or a judge. We're putting this all on you. They give you that little silver platter and they say, okay, if you don't think you're going to commit a crime in the next year, then what's so wrong with going on probation? Because if you go on probation and then you don't commit a crime, then this is all erased in a year or two when you get off probation. And that's it. And they sweeten the pot so heavily for you. Because they're not indicting by grand jury. Because they're trying to get you to, out of fear, forget your constitutional rights. I'm going to have my husband send me that video of the guys who did that talk today. because our justice system has become, so they were talking about how we are down to like 1% of all cases go to jury trial now. I'm like 1%, that's technically a lot in the court's eyes, and surprising because I have sat in courtrooms and I have watched people and I have seen everybody. I saw one father, I was proud of him. He told the judge, I am going to jury trial, I am going pro se, and I'm going to get my kids back. And I thought, wow, I would love to continue watching this guy. I almost thought about writing down the dates he was due to go to court and watch him do the. I should have. And I would have learned a lot more about the justice system too in that moment. Because the judge looked at him and he said, "Are you really sure you want to represent yourself?" Because the general saying, and the judge didn't say that, but the general saying is, if you are your own lawyer, then your client has a fool for a lawyer. Because putting the justice system in our hands and in the hands of we the people, in the public eye and in the eye of the lawyers and the prosecutors, is that you're a fool, you're being dumb, only a lawyer can help you out, and now you're going to lose your case. And actually, that's quite the opposite. I now tell people, and especially when we got AI and ChatGPT and Grok and other things like that, that you can just pump in the court information and it will help you do all your filings. We are so empowered nowadays. We are so empowered, but we are so scared at the same time. Mackenzie lawyered up right away. Rosie and her boyfriend lawyered up right away, and a lot of people that knew Mackenzie immediately lawyered up. And what did the public do? You're guilty because you lawyered up. You are saying, somebody said, I had them on my podcast and they talked minimally, and they had their lawyer with them. And Mackenzie's case is actually one of the examples of how you should handle anytime you are charged with something. I'm actually very proud of Mackenzie and everybody around them for immediately lawyering up and not talking. Now, it was kind of dumb for Mackenzie to talk in her secret language around her mother. That got recorded, and guess what? I grew up in the 90s. Okay, we spoke Pig Latin. We spoke those. I had friends who could speak it really fast, and it blew my mind because I couldn't do that. I was like, oh my gosh, mind blown that they could speak it that fast. And so, of course, somebody on the internet is going to figure that out, know what you're speaking, and you're busted. I guess I just wanted to quickly come on here and do a live because I got to get ready to go. But I read my comment section. I appreciate everybody who commented, who watched. I'm sorry if you feel like I ramble and I don't. And I love the ones that watched and commented. And yes, it needs to be talked about that Dawn was an adult. It is technically considered statutory rape. She was a child. She was under 18. Even when he was 17 and she was like, 14? That's a really bad age gap, okay? Even though they're both under 18, it's a world of difference between freshman and senior. Okay? That's a 4-year difference in age. It's a 4-year difference in maturity. One's getting ready to graduate. One is freshly entering high school, getting out of their middle school attitude. When it comes to my thoughts on marriage, I got married at 18, divorced at 21, remarried just before I turned 22. I got divorced right as the time I turned 21, so it was actually a whole year that went by, surprisingly. But and now I've been in a 23-year marriage. I would not say that anybody under the age of 20 should get married, and 20 is a hard spot because you either have to date people that are 20, 19, or 18, and you can't go any lower than 18. And you could go older, and then if you're a guy, you're a cougar. If you're a girl, then that's people still see that as okay. 27-year-old dating a 20-year-old, that's wrong. 7-year age gap because one is close to 30 and one is still close to 18, and so people round down and round up, and it looks like this big like. And there is a difference between somebody being over 25, and you can go over the psychology of it, because when you turn 12, your brain turns into this sponge mode, and it goes into this sponge mode until you're 25. So the best time to learn, this is why you should go to school right after high school and keep learning, because as soon as you're 25, that's when that switch flips in your brain. You're no longer this learning sponge. It doesn't mean you can't learn, it's just your body is not absorbing as much as it is designed to. And so when you have somebody in their late 20s and somebody in their early 20s, you still have that maturity gap. Unless the 27-year-old never learned to grow up, which some of them don't. Some of them don't even act 30. I just say forgive your 20. Oh my gosh, people in their 20s, ooh, the trouble they get into. And so, no, this is just what courts do, okay? We can't say anything bad about Dom because he's the victim. He's the one that's no longer here to speak for himself. He's the one that's gone. And so they're not going to allow these text messages. They're not going to allow any evidence that puts Dom in a bad light, because that takes away from victim status. And when you're charging by information only, and you have no evidence, and you only have circumstantial evidence, and you have a bunch of teenagers' words, because another thing that you guys made me realize today is the cops are interviewing a bunch of teenagers. Everybody in this Mackenzie Sharilla case is a teenager, and you're doing nothing but interviewing a bunch of teenagers? Okay. You're interviewing a bunch of teenagers to put somebody away for life or close to life. Or, okay, we're dealing with a bunch of teens, guys. And two sets of the only mature parents semi in this were Davian's parents. However, he was still a senior in high school and underage. So why was Davian out all night long? Why did the parents allow their underage son to be out all night long? Or was he 18 by then? But he's still a senior in high school, and he just graduated, and now he's on substances and out all night long. And they said he was going places. And it's like, well, the places he was going, per his own choices towards the end, was not trying to get a career and a job, because you can't successfully get a career and a job when you're spending your nights strung out. And so, no, we are not allowed to talk about the victims and their choices. You're only allowed to talk about Mackenzie, who's in the driver's seat, and all the choices she made that night. And her past texts that put her in a bad light, her past recordings that put her in a bad light. I mean, for all we know, that phone call that's recorded where Dom is like, she's like, well, you kicked me out, and if you don't open this door, I'm going to give you like 10 seconds, Dom. Like, how do you know that was not a power trip of Dom's, that he was putting some control on Mackenzie and trying to teach her a lesson? How do we know that that recording that was done was truly Mackenzie being unhinged, or was she being pushed by Dom's behavior? Because all these people, none of these people are acting like adults. And we can also go into the science and the psychology of what substances do to a young person's brain who is under 25. There is a reason why substances for somebody who is under 25 is horribly bad. And we could go into all of that later if you want. And it keeps you young. It keeps your decisions young. It stunts your growth. And then when you get into your 30s and 40s, you could still be making childish decisions because of that interruption that has happened in your brain from all. Like, there's one substance, like, my brothers and sisters did and their friends did, and I would never do, and I'm glad I never did it, because it gets stored in your spine. And even, like, say 10 years goes down the road, you haven't done it for 10 years. Is, you know, that little strip you stick on your tongue of paper and it has a substance on it. But anyways, so 10 years down the road, you could be sitting there eating your pancakes with a big glass of orange juice, and you drink down your big glass of orange juice, and that vitamin C hits your spine. Next thing you know, you're tripping out. You are tripping all over the place because it gets stored in your spine. And one day I was sitting there drinking a bunch of OJ, and my brother's friend was looking at me, and he's like, if I drink that much OJ, Rose, he's like, I would be tripping out. He goes, it would be coming back up. He's like, oh my gosh, I love orange juice. I think orange juice is great. Especially fresh. Ooh, you don't have to put sugar in it. It's so good. And he was looking at me like, oh my, I would be tripping again. And so they really do affect you for life. It's not for the moment, and then when it's out of your body, then when your mind is, and it's, no, it stores in your body, it stores in your brain, it stores in your body, and it's there for the rest of your life. And then you have to sacrifice your OJ. You could take a sip maybe because you don't want to go tripping out again. And I sit here and just look at this whole case and just say we're dealing with a bunch of stunted teenagers, and nobody's looking at the science of substances. But like I said, and I'll end this here, I still think that this case needs to be important, because in 2027, next year, they're going to need us as a society to accept the new 2027 cars that are going to monitor you. They're going to monitor your eyes, your heart rate. Somehow it's going to monitor all of you that is sitting in that driver's seat. And if you are doing something that the government does not agree with, we're in 1984. Big Brother is coming for us. And Mackenzie Sharilla's case is a warning that Big Brother needs this case. They need you upset about this case. They need you to see Dom and Damien as perfect. They need you to not care that this case was built on circumstantial evidence. And they need you. They need you so badly. Government means to govern the people. We, the people, tell the government how to govern us. The Constitution of the United States can only be upheld by us. That's why Amendment 1 and 2 are so important. They are the first two, and there's a reason why they're the first two: freedom of speech and right to bear arms, because those are the two ways. Well, think about it, 250 years ago, that was the only way to uphold the government, okay? That was the only way. They had guns and they stepped up. Nowadays, if we do that, it's January 6th all over again. People don't realize that peaceful protest was our First and Second Amendment right. Okay? So stop shining a bad light on it in the media. We need to. I'm glad Trump walked off that other day and yelled at the media. I was talking to my husband. I'm like, should he have said, "You're either stupid or you're corrupt"? And we just kind of laughed about it, because it's like, well, you're either stupid or you're corrupt, I guess. If you believe any of the paid news out there, and some podcasters out there that are highly paid are paid to make you like them, and they're supposed to reinforce what the news is saying. Because let me end on this note. The only way the Constitution dies is when we, the people, stop defending it, stop asking for it, stop asking for our rights, stop standing on our rights, and we, the people, have to willingly let the government trick us out of our constitutional rights. I covered this a lot on TikTok, especially because of the CPS case, and I will be covering more CPS cases in Utah that have gone so wrong with family annihilators and stuff. Like I said, I cover many cases, so no, I haven't done the deep dive on Mackenzie Sharilla's case like I probably should, because I cover a multitude of cases. I'm trying to stream more often between Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. Those are the three you'll find me on. I'm trying to stream on all of those. And I game on Twitch. So if you want to see and come in and casually just sit and game with me on a live stream, go find me on Twitch. It's Talk with Rose. And I have a Discord and everything where my community has been for the last 3 years, my Twitch community. And you can come, we can step off politics and crime and just game. We talk Eurovision, because I have a lot of people who are in my community who are not in America. Actually, the majority of the people are not in America. So I will end with that. We, the people, have to uphold the Constitution. We have to tell our government how to govern us. Do not give up your rights freely. So let everybody lawyer up, guys. Let everybody lawyer up. It's our rights, okay? Look up your rights before you start telling somebody they're guilty for their action. All right, love you guys. We will see you guys later. I gotta get going soon. It's getting towards evening. I will be cooking all day tomorrow. So I might do a couple live showing what I'm cooking, because I'll be cooking a Lithuanian dish, hopefully a Russian dish, American dish, and let's see how I was going to do Lithuanian, Russian, American, and indigenous. So I will be doing 4 styles of cooking tomorrow. And all of these represent roots of where my ancestors come from also, because I have indigenous roots, I have Russian roots from my mom, indigenous from my dad, American born, and way back, like 5-6 generations, UK, Lithuanian. I recently did a DNA test and found out where all my blood comes from. Besides the fact that my grandfather was born on a reservation, and my other grandfather was born in Russia. So I'm actually like 2nd, 3rd generation here in America. So some Hispanic people have actually been here longer than my family. All right, so I will be cooking those 4 dishes tomorrow. So let's see if you want to. I will see you guys tomorrow then.